We have all come across stars who seem to be living in a world of their own, and not just any world, but one rampant with anger issues, insults, and rants. We know you're all thinking of Kanye West, but today we're talking about a tennis player who just can't seem to stay out of trouble, the one and only Nick Kyrgios. Without further ado, let's dive straight in. To begin with, let's see what his crime is. Nick Kyrgios was fined the most at the US Open, and now he's been shot down again for a bizarre moment on the court. Let's be real, are any of us even surprised? He was fined for the gazillionth time for his behavior during his massive victory over Medvedev on Monday. We're going to break it down for you. The 27-year-old put on a masterclass to defeat the reigning champion in New York, a victory described as Kyrgios' best ever by Aussie great Todd Woodbridge. So far, so good, right? But here's when things took a turn for the worst. In a rather shocking twist to his performance, the US Open announced overnight that Kyrgios had been fined $4,000 for an audible obscenity. The tournament has fined him for the third time. He also received the tournament's highest fine, $7,500, for spitting and audible obscenities during his second round victory at Flushing Meadows. Now, we'll get into that later, mind you. It's a rabbit hole. And that's not all, friends. In addition, he was fined $4,000 for racket abuse during a doubles match against Thanasi Kokkinakis. His most recent $4,000 fine brings his total to a whopping $15,500. It's quite hilarious if you really think about it. While we're on this topic, here are some more details. Now, as we all know, the fine was imposed after Kyrgios was repeatedly heard swearing at his player's box on court microphones. His rants at his entourage, which include girlfriend Costine Hatzi, have become a bizarre tactic he employs on a regular basis to pump himself up before matches. We're not here to judge, but we think you're crossing a line here, Kyrgios. It made things difficult and awkward for his New York team, as it should. Just minutes after losing his cool against Medvedev, Kyrgios produced some pretty silky tennis. Here's how it went down. Fair warning, it's a teensy bit PG-18. Tell me where to bleep serve, he raged, and he didn't stop there. Bleep 3 times. Say something, bleep hell. Following the outburst, American tennis commentators apologized to viewers. We're not gonna lie, we got secondhand embarrassment just by listening to it. The commentator stated the place was so well mic'd that the audience would have to hear a lot of cursing, and that he was sorry about that. We were too. Coming up, let's take a look at what happened earlier that night. Just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, it does. Earlier in the tournament, Kyrgios was seen in an incredible rant to the chair umpire, complaining that he could smell marijuana smoke coming from the crowd. Kyrgios yelled it was bleep marijuana. He further added that there was smoke and that he wasn't going to complain about the food. According to him, players running side by side with asthma was probably not ideal. Kyrgios had barked at his player's box again minutes before his argument with the chair umpire. If you're not gonna bleep support me, bro, he yelled. Wow, yikes. We know you're confused, so here's some context for you. Nick Kyrgios was warned for spitting and complaining about the smell of marijuana, but he managed to beat Benjamin Bonzi in the second round of the US Open. And the Australian is one of the title favorites following his run to the Wimbledon final and strong form on North American hard courts, and he admitted he is putting a lot of pressure on himself after battling to victory. Kyrgios received the warning after dropping serve late in the second set, prompting the Australian to chastise his entourage. Meanwhile, Kyrgios claimed to have severe asthma, prompting the umpire to remind the crowd not to smoke. When he runs side to side, he had trouble breathing. After his thrilling victory over Medvedev, Kyrgios has vaulted into the lead for the US Open. The Australian has reached the US Open quarterfinals for the first time after stunning the world with a 7-6, 3-6, 6-3, 6-2 victory over the Russian. Kyrgios will now face number 27 seed Karen Khachanov in the quarterfinals. In a golden, memorable night for the Australian tennis player, Alya Tomljanovic advanced to quarterfinals with a stunning victory over Ludmila Samsonova. On Wednesday morning, Kyrgios will compete in the second round match of the night session at Arthur Ashe Stadium. We certainly hope there are no more mishaps on his part. Now, this isn't the only squabble Kyrgios is facing. Just before this entire incident, he ran headfirst into trouble for misbehaving with a fan during Wimbledon's final. The woman accused by Kyrgios for having 700 drinks during the match, Anna Paulus, has filed a defamation suit against him. And here's what led up to this. Kyrgios complained about Paulus after receiving a code violation for swearing when a spectator called out before a second serve. Paulus claimed she had only had 2 drinks when she was led out of court. According to the woman, during the final, Nick Kyrgios made a reckless and completely baseless allegation against her. Kyrgios' false allegation was broadcast to and read by millions worldwide, causing significant damage and distress to Paulus and her family. She also stated that the purpose of her lawsuit is not to obtain monetary compensation, but rather to clear her name. Furthermore, Any recovered damages will be donated to charity. Doesn't that seem like a reasonable request? What's more, in July, the 27-year-old was charged in an Australian court with assaulting his ex-girlfriend in December of last year. Things suddenly took a darker turn, didn't they? Get yourself together, Nick. Coming up, here's some other news that might interest you. First up, let's talk about Rafael Nadal. Rafael Nadal has had an extremely successful year in his return to the top of professional tennis in the ATP, and when it comes to Grand Slams, he was very close to having an immaculate year. Sadly, a loss to the surprising American tennis player Frances Tiafoe on Monday prevented him from having an undefeated year in the sport's 4 major tournaments. After defeating Taylor Fritz in the quarterfinals in an epic 5-set match, including a tiebreak in the final, Nadal had to abandon the tournament and not play in the semifinals against the controversial Australian tennis player Nick Kyrgios due to an abdominal muscle tear. Sounds painful, doesn't it? And he returned from injury a few days before the US Open, but after victories over Rinky Hijikata, Fabio Fognini, and Richard Gasquet in the first 3 matches, it was his turn to face the aforementioned Tiafoe, who won in 4 sets by 6-4, 4-6, 6-4, 6-3. Nadal's streak of 16 consecutive Grand Slam quarterfinal appearances has come to an end, the 5th longest for a man in the Open era dating back to 1968. This just proves our theory: Rafael Nadal is actually human. Now that Nadal can rest a little, we will see what happens in the future of this active legend of world tennis. Next up on our news radar is Serena Williams and her legacy. Serena Williams is leaving tennis as one of the greatest players to ever grace the court. After 27 years on the professional tour, 23 Grand Slam single titles, and a plethora of other records, after losing to Alya Tomljanovic at the US Open this year, the American bid an emotional farewell to the sport she has helped shape over the last 2 decades. We'd be lying if we said we weren't a little teary-eyed. Given her impeccable standards, it was probably not the fairy tale ending she would have preferred, but the reaction from those inside Arthur Ashe Stadium demonstrated just how important Williams has been to the game. Throughout the week at the US Open, players and fans shared stories about how her life has influenced their own, and their gratitude has been expressed through banners in the stands and messages on social media. The 40-year-old closes out a remarkable career with 39 Grand Slam titles, 23 single titles, 14 double titles, and 2 mixed double titles. Williams does, however, fall 1 singles Grand Slam title short of Australian Margaret Court's all-time record, but she says she's more than fine with that. And Serena Williams, along with her sister Venus, has inspired a new generation of tennis players and left an incredible mark on the sport. And the pair has influenced Hollywood, most notably the film King Richard, which depicted the dedication and focus required by the entire Williams family to produce 2 of the greatest players to ever walk onto a court. Lastly, let's take a look at the US Open Tennis 2022 results. Coco Gauff faced Shuai Zhang on Sunday, hoping to extend what was already her deepest run at the US Open. With a win, Gauff advances to her 3rd Grand Slam quarterfinal, the first 2 coming at the French Open. In the men's singles draw, men top seed Daniil Medvedev faced number 23 Nick Kyrgios in prime time, and the night concluded at Arthur Ashe Stadium with 5th-seeded Ons Jabeur and number 18 Veronika Kudermetova. Are you happy with these results, or were you hoping for something else? And that's a wrap. Let us know what you think in the comments down below of Nick and his myriad of controversies. Hit like and click that subscribe button, and we'll be back with another video soon. Later.